I first actually started practicing Buddhism when I was in graduate school, and I realized that it was possible to have compassion for yourself. Well, it was actually, we'd go to this weekly evening sitting meditation groups. And it's funny because I was learning how to meditate, learning mindfulness meditation, and that was going pretty well, but I couldn't really get it. It takes a while to figure out what mindfulness is and how you can really use it in your life. But the second, it was a woman actually, a woman named Therese Arnold. She started talking about self-compassion and how important it was to be compassionate to yourself, and the fact that you couldn't even really be fully compassionate with others until you were compassionate to yourself. And Rupert was actually with me that night. And I remember after her talk, we were walking home and I just said, oh my God, it never really dawned on me that the way we're told to be with people we care about, our children, our best friends, that we actually could take that same caring, nurturing stance to ourselves, and that it wouldn't be the same as self-indulgence. So yeah, I can remember the night when she was talking about it, and it was a pretty radical mind shift for me. So, and I really needed it at the time, like I said, because I was going through a divorce. My ex-husband was not at all happy with how I was handling things, and I felt a lot of guilt and shame, and it was a very difficult time, and it just stepped in at the exact moment I needed it in my life, and really enabled me to turn that experience from a very painful one into one of a lot of growth and healing. The day I found out about Rowan's autism diagnosis, I was actually going on my way to a meditation retreat when I actually did a self-diagnosis, and he had 9 out of 10 signs. And they said if you have 3 out of 10, your kid has a good chance of being autistic, and he had 9 out of 10. So I knew without a doubt he was autistic. So I went to this retreat, and of course it was still incredibly painful, but I think what it enabled me to do is, instead of just immediately going into problem-solving mode, I mean, I did go into problem-solving mode, but I really took the time to give myself compassion for how hard it was. And I let myself feel my grief, I let myself feel my pain. I didn't judge myself for feeling the grief. I think a lot of parents with special needs kids feel guilty for grieving, because it's, how can I love my child, so if I grieve, does that mean I don't love them? And it gets very confused emotionally. But I knew it was natural and normal to feel grief, and that I should just let myself feel it. And I gave myself a lot of, hugs and nurturing, and a lot of kindness and a lot of support, and really just helped myself get through it in a very, very compassionate way. And that helped me have a lot more energy to deal with Rowan. So if Rowan was throwing an ear-splitting tantrum, or some other really difficult behavior, or pooped his pants in public and I had to change them, I would actually stop and give myself compassion, and I would say, this is really hard right now. I'm gonna notice that it's difficult. I'm gonna feel compassion and concern and caring for the fact that this is really hard right now. And as I go through the next steps that I have to go through, I'm gonna do it held in the space of compassion and care and nurturing. And so I'm writing a book which will come out in January of 2011 called Self-Compassion. And it's basically summarizing the research I've done and that other people have since done, and really trying to, it's written for the general audience. It's not an academic book. And the idea is just to talk to people, the average person, the average neurotic, as I like to call us, talk about how this could really change your life. And there's lots of exercises and just a lot of information, because the thing about self-compassion is, I think the biggest step towards changing how you relate to yourself with more kindness is just to notice how you normally treat yourself. I think a lot of people have no idea how harsh they are to themselves. I mean, the way people talk to themselves is way more unkind and cruel than they would ever talk to a friend, and certainly no one they cared about, like their child. I mean, the way I see the whole thing that happened with Rowan and Rupert and Mongolia and the horse boy story and my self-compassion work is, it really feels much more like you become open to it. So instead of you actively saying, okay, now I'm going to do this, I'm going to do step A, B, C, and D in a very controlling way, it's more like life shows you something, and like life opens a doorway. And so your job is just to walk through it, because you don't even know what you're going to find. You don't even know what's going to happen. I don't know where the self-compassion work is going to go. I don't know how Rowan's going to be. I don't know what's going to happen. But I know as life keeps opening these doors, I feel safe enough and trusting enough to walk through those doors when they open. And I really do think that's what an epiphany is. It's an opening. And in some ways, one of the things you learn from an epiphany is that you aren't as much in control as you think you are. And that our minds, thinking they can control everything and dictate things and have everything happen the way we want them to, is actually, it's an illusion. It can cause a lot of suffering. We get very frustrated because we find out, sure enough, we can't control things the way we want them to. But an epiphany comes from life, right? Life says, that's not actually true. This is the reality. This is what's happening. So you just open to that.